What is the most cringeworthy thing you've witnessed a helicopter parent do? When I was 10, my best friend came over to my house. We were supposed to have a sleepover that night. I was so excited, but she looked sad when she arrived. My dad's making me check in every hour, she whispered. He installed a tracking app. We tried to have fun anyway. While playing Mario, her phone buzzed. A text from her dad asking for a photo to verify her surroundings. This became our new normal. Every sleepover for months, her dad would call, text, or sometimes drive by, just checking. One Saturday, she came over with a walkie-talkie. Dad bought these so he can talk to me anytime, she explained. The phone wasn't reliable enough. During our movie night, her dad's voice crackled through constantly. Are you girls sitting appropriately? What are you watching? Is anyone else there? My mom finally spoke to him. The girls need some space, she said kindly. The next weekend, my friend wasn't allowed to come over, or the weekend after. 3 weeks later, she finally visited, but only for 2 hours and with her dad waiting in the car outside. What's going on? I asked, confused why our friendship was suddenly under surveillance. She looked at the floor. My cousin got a girlfriend. My dad freaked out. What does that have to do with us? She hesitated before answering. He said he doesn't want me to turn into a lesbian. Just like that, my favorite childhood memories ended. No more sleeping bags on trampolines, baking cookies at 2 a.m., playing Super Mario Bros. All night, or TPing schoolmates' houses. All because her dad couldn't handle 2 little girls being best friends.
My daughter's first word exposed my wife's biggest secret. I was so excited to hear my baby girl's first word. For weeks, I'd been saying dada whenever I could. But one morning, while I was feeding her breakfast, she looked right at me and said, Alex. She kept saying it, giggling like it was our game. I didn't know any Alex. When I asked my wife about it, she got quiet and said it must be from some kid's show. But something felt off. Her hands were shaking as she washed dishes. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about how my wife had been working late a lot lately. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I checked her phone while she was in the shower. There were hundreds of messages from work project in her phone. But this wasn't about work at all. It was Alex. And the messages went back to before our daughter was even born. The last message read, she looks more like you every day. I took screenshots of everything and sent them to myself. Then I got a DNA test done. When the results came back, my heart stopped. My daughter wasn't mine. I confronted my wife with the test results. She broke down and admitted everything. Alex wasn't just her coworker. He was her high school sweetheart she'd never gotten over. The divorce was ugly, but worth it. Last week, I signed adoption papers for my new girlfriend's little boy. Turns out real love isn't about DNA. It's about choice. And this time, I chose my family instead of having it chosen for me.
She said, my therapist says you're the source of my anxiety. I nodded and said, I see. Then I packed my bags and left a note. Problem solved. You're welcome. The panicked text I got 24 hours later told a different story. 4 years together, living together for 2. And I thought I knew Veronica. She had her quirks, sure, but nothing out of the ordinary. Then she started therapy. At first, it seemed like the best thing ever. She came home glowing, talking about self-care and boundaries. I was all for it. Who doesn't want their partner to feel better? But then therapy basically turned into everything Marcus does is evil. If I asked her if she wanted Thai or pizza for dinner, apparently that was controlling behavior. If I said the dishes were piling up, suddenly I was obsessed with power dynamics. When she came home at 4 a.m. and I asked if she was okay, that was toxic masculinity. It felt like I was living with a self-diagnosed psychology textbook, and I wasn't the boyfriend anymore. I was the case study. I started walking on eggshells in my own house. I stopped asking questions. I cleaned quietly, cooked quietly, lived quietly, spent more time at my buddy Theo's just to breathe. Then came the Tuesday speech. I come home late from work, tired, and she's on the couch clutching her therapy journal like it's a script. She looks me dead in the eye and says, Marcus, we finally figured it out. You're the source of my anxiety. I just stared at her. She really thought I was gonna argue, cry, beg? Nah. I stood up, grabbed my duffel, and started packing. She followed me, panicked. You're proving her point. Nope, I was solving her problem. I walked out that night. That's when the circus started. The texts kicked off less than 24 hours later. First, angry ones. You're immature. Dr. Whitlock was right. Then came the guilt trips. Please, let's talk. I didn't mean it like that. Then, practical desperation. The Wi-Fi's down. I don't know the password. How do I pay the electric bill? Rent's due next week, Marcus. Help me wild. Because 3 months ago when I said maybe we should downsize since I was paying 70% of everything, she told me I was threatened by her lifestyle. A lifestyle funded by me. Then the social media saga started. Cryptic posts. When people show you who they are, believe them. Self-care isn't selfish. And my personal favorite, healing from abandonment. Meanwhile, she's posting selfies at $18 smoothie spots. She didn't stop there. She actually called my HR, told them I was her domestic partner and that I was having a breakdown. My boss called me like, so she told you you're her problem and you agreed? Honestly, respect. Even HR laughed. Her mom wasn't far behind. Shows up at my job lobby, designer person all crying, Marcus, she can't eat, she can't sleep. She had to borrow grocery money from me. Grocery money. I left a fully stocked fridge and her $400 emergency cash stash. 2 days later, she's borrowing for groceries, but also out buying pressed juice with her girls. Then came the roommate stunt. She advertised her apartment as this healing, mindful space and pulled in some poor 23-year-old named Melody. That girl lasted 5 days. She DM'd me like, is Veronica always like this? She told me I couldn't use the living room between 6 and 8 because it's her integration time. Integration time for therapy. She even tried charging the poor girl extra for emotional labor. Landlord found out I wasn't on the lease anymore. Eviction proceedings started. The wildest part? Her therapist straight up texted me, said leaving a partner suddenly can mean deeper issues and offered me referrals. My lawyer buddy told me to screenshot everything because it was a massive ethics violation. Next thing I know, the clinic supervisor calls me. Turns out Dr. Whitlock might actually lose her license. And Veronica, she doubled down. Her mom even emailed me a literal invoice, $15,700 for emotional damages, therapy costs, and lifestyle adjustments. Like she was billing me for breaking up with her. My lawyer said, frame it. By the end, Veronica was out of the apartment, out of a job at the wellness center, and living back at mommy's house. All that, I'm the source of your anxiety talk. And when I actually left, she completely fell apart. She thought therapy gave her power. But the second I agreed with her diagnosis and walked out, that power was gone. She thought I'd fight to prove I wasn't the problem. Instead, I let her believe her own words, and she crumbled under them.
Have you ever been blamed for something just because you were born? Growing up, I noticed Dad's hands would shake make whenever someone mentioned family reunions. He'd excuse himself to the bathroom and come back with red eyes. Mom would quickly change the subject. Every Christmas, packages arrived for my sister, Lyra, from relatives. Cards with $20 bills, stuffed animals, books. My name was never on anything. When I asked why, Mom said they must have forgotten. But you don't forget the same kid for 15 years straight. At school events, I'd see other families, grandparents cheering at soccer games, aunts and uncles taking photos. Our section was always just Mom and Dad. When friends asked about my extended family, I'd lie and say they lived far away. Dad's phone would ring at dinner. He'd glance at the caller ID, his face would drain of color, and he'd send it straight to voicemail. This happened 3 or 4 times a week. When I asked who kept calling, he'd mutter something about telemarketers and pour himself another drink. Lyra got invited to cousin Aria's Sweet 16. The invitation was addressed to the Merrick family, but when we showed up, Uncle Darian pulled Dad aside. They had a heated, whispered conversation by the coat check. We left before the cake was even cut. Facebook made everything worse. I could see my cousins posting pictures from family gatherings. Birthday parties, graduations, holidays, dozens of relatives I'd never met, all laughing and hugging. Lyra was in some photos from when she was little. I was never there. When Grandpa Elias died last year, we found out from Lyra's friend who saw it on Instagram. No one called us. No one told us about the funeral. Dad locked himself in his room for 3 days. I could hear him crying through the walls. I started asking direct questions. Why don't we see Dad's family? Mom would get flustered, say it was complicated, that some families just drift apart. But Lyra pulled me aside one night. She remembered things I didn't. She remembered being at family parties when we were really little. She remembered suddenly stopping going. The breaking point came when I applied for colleges. I needed family medical history forms filled out. Dad couldn't answer basic questions about his side. When I pressed him, he snapped. Just put unknown for everything, okay? That night, I heard Mom and Dad fighting downstairs. Mom was crying, saying something about 17 years of this silence, and when does it end? Dad kept repeating, they made their choice, over and over. I started digging through old boxes in the basement, photo albums from when Lyra and I were babies. There were pictures of Dad's family holding us, smiling. Then suddenly, around age 2, all those faces disappeared from our photos. Last week, I found Dad going through those same boxes. He was holding a yellow hospital bracelet with my name on it. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold it. When he saw me watching, he tried to shove it back in the box. Dad, what's wrong? He sat down heavily, still clutching that tiny bracelet. Son, your uncle, Jalen, died the night you were born. Uncle Jalen. I'd heard his name whispered occasionally, always followed by immediate silence. Jalen was driving to the hospital to meet you. He was so excited to be an uncle. It was snowing, and he hit black ice on the highway. Dad's voice cracked. My family blamed me, said if I hadn't called him so late, if I hadn't made such a big deal about you being born, he would have waited until morning. Every missed birthday, every empty chair, every avoided phone call suddenly made sense. At Jalen's funeral, my father looked at me holding you and said, that baby cost us our son. My mother never spoke to me again. Dad looked at me with 17 years of guilt and pain in his eyes. They still blame me? He nodded, tears streaming down his face. Some people need someone to blame when tragedy strikes. Unfortunately, that someone was you.